Hello and welcome to Mooncast episode 10. On this one, me and Jack have a discussion about bluffing. Well, it starts talking about bluffing and then we end up just talking generally about Arcane. Now, unfortunately, when I listened back to the recording that we'd done, there's a couple of sections where it was really muffled and I'm not quite sure why that happened. I was pretty much holding the phone the whole time while we were recording, but I don't know why. But some of a couple bits that are muffled, including right at the beginning. So that's why I'm recording this intro separately. So when we start off, I start off immediately talking about demoing the game and how people like the arcane ability most. And then about halfway through, after about 25 minutes, it goes all muffled again for a little bit. So I will fill in a little bit there too. But I hope you enjoyed the rest of it and I apologise for those mistakes. Demoing at Dicenu and Salute and everything, most people seem to pick up and like the arcane mechanic more, which is interesting. So we're going to do it from the point of view of the active player and the defending player, talking about when never to bluff. So as the active player, when to always play the card, when to potentially always bluff, and then all the middle ground in between that, and then the same as the defender, when to always call a bluff, when to never call a bluff, and the in-betweeny bits as well. And to kind of preempt, there's a couple of there's a couple of sort of flies in the ointment, you could say.
Awkward buggers.
Awkward buggers, which is Graddock when it comes to bluffing, and then also some of the fairies, particularly those with Trickster. So that's Freya, and there's a new one who's got it, which is Foxglove,
yeah.
And also Silvertongue is a pain for bluffing. He's got an ability where he gets energy and heals damage. Well, heals completely, in fact, if a fairy within 6 inches bluffs. So we'll be mentioning those sporadically throughout, but we thought we'd mention those at the beginning first. So we'll start off with being the active player. And we'll start with when we think is, generally speaking, you would not bother bluffing. You could, when you don't really need to. So,
Wish you could read your writing.
Sorry, for once we've actually been a bit more prepared, a bit things down. But I've written it in for some reason in pink pen and really quickly, so my handwriting is illegible. It's not like I teach small children who need to read my writing. Oh, wait a second, I do. So the first one, which seems an obvious one, is when you're healing someone and you've got the card you need to heal them completely.
Yeah.
And there's no one else that needs healing.
Absolutely no point bluffing.
There's literally no point in bluffing then. I mean, we're going to cover some obvious things in this, but that's one that's pretty obvious, isn't it? They've got 3 wounds left, 3 wounds to heal. You've got the blue 2, and it's heal X+1. No one else left around that you might want to get the extra one off. Just play the card you got. Make it really quick and easy. And having the card you want is generally speaking, is a reason to not necessarily bluff anyway, I would say.
Barring special exceptions like Trickster.
Generally speaking, like if you're firing a crossbow and you've got a green 2, we'll just play the green 2. I mean, if you got a green 2 and a green 1, you might play the green 1 claiming it's a green 2, because your opponent then might be tempted to call your bluff. Or something, I don't know how.
If you need Graddock anyway.
Yeah.
You play the 2. So it's a 3.
Yeah. Or something. Obviously, Graddock is that other one where you could definitely always bluff if you wanted to, because you know it can't be changed. So yeah, you could call the green 3 if it's a green 2, because you know you're still going to get the green 2 off.
Yeah.
Or call the green 3 when it's a green 1. Doesn't make a difference. You can call whatever you like, can't you, on that one? That's an instance when you could always bluff. But if you have the green 3, you may as well play the green 3, because as the defending player, you're probably always going to call a bluff with Graddock. because there's no reason not to, because they're
Yeah.
going to get the card they want anyway. Well, on the flip side of that, if they played the green 3,
Yeah, you don't want
you
it.
might not
That's
want
what
to.
makes Relic so annoying.
That's why that's so annoying. Is it really puts that fly in the ointment, doesn't it? Really. So the obvious ones are having the card you want, and like friendly buffing spells or healing spells where you can't target anyone else afterwards. Where having a follow up wouldn't benefit anyone or you at all. It's the instance where you would never bluff. The other one we've got on our list, which is generally speaking true, it's not necessarily you would always bluff, but you'd be tempted. Oh, sorry, you'd never bluff. Is if the catastrophe risks death. We've got
Or just basically a bad. Oh, is that still?
yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. If the result of the catastrophe would be too bad.
Yeah. So, for example, the good one is something like Shabaroon. I think the catastrophe for Transcombobulate suffers 4 wounds. If you've only got 4 wounds left, it's a bit too much of a risk, particularly on Transcombobulate, as you have to be a 3. There's only 1 of each. If you haven't got it, it's a bit of a risk anyway, because that means they probably have got it, and there's a good chance they're going to call a catastrophe. They're going to call your bluff. I guess the other time that you could always bluff, which we never thought about, if you've got 3 catastrophes,
yeah.
or the other possibility is because there's obviously one thing we didn't write down here. Young Jack manipulating the arcane deck. And obviously there's more Leshark characters that can also manipulate the arcane deck. So if you've manipulated the arcane deck in such a way that you know your opponent can't have a catastrophe, then you can safely bluff. Because the worst that can happen is you just don't get the ability off.
Yeah.
Danica, for example, can remove cards permanently, and I think Foxglove I think Gwendolyn can. Gwendolyn can manipulate the deck as well, can remove cards and put them next to her. There's definitely a few Lesher Vaults that can do that. I mean, Danica, if you got lucky, you could just remove all the catastrophes just for fun. So everyone could, but your opponent wouldn't know that you removed all the catastrophes. So that could be quite a fun bit. So yeah, if the catastrophe is too horrific, it's too risky. And we'll get back to the catastrophes in a second with the last bit, but I think we should talk about Silvertongue a bit more and Trickster.
Right.
So, for those of you who don't know,
Better get the card.
I've actually been prepared today, and I've actually got the book in front of me for a change. So, Trickster is an ability that Freya has, and I believe Foxglove is one of the new ones, has it as well. I don't think anyone else does at the moment. I'll read the ability quickly for those who don't know. So when this model successfully bluffs, after resolving the effect, you may reveal the bluff to replay the ability, choosing a new target if you wish, and drawing a fresh hand without paying the energy cost. So it's even better than essentially successfully bluffing in terms of, or not bluffing and then calling a bluff, because you get to draw fresh cards.
Drawing the fresh hand means you shuffle the.
Yeah, you shuffle the deck, shuffle the deck and everything, so you draw it new. So it's not actually, I would say, as horrific when you're facing Freya as it is if you're facing Foxglove, because Foxglove has atrophy.
Oh god!
So Freya doesn't have any particularly horrific abilities in that sense. Which is a healer. Fizzle Pop's quite fun, of course. X magical damage, and that could be terrible. I mean, you could be hitting Fancy Hat with a red 3, and he's having 3 wounds or whatever. Or Disley spell using an active ability and doing it again is still horrible, but not necessarily the end of the world. But against Foxglove, who can cast atrophy to get again and again 2x magical damage, that's horrible. So Trickster is a really there's not a time when you could or could not always call a bluff. It's really dependent. You've got to really look at your cards, really think about it. Because it's hard to know, isn't it? And the other one is Silvertongue. He's got an ability called Fairy Mischief. Whenever a friendly fairy within 6 inches bluffs successfully, you may reveal the card. So that means you can do Trickster and this at the same time, because they both say reveal the card. And this character gains 2 energy and restores all wounds.
That's horrific.
Well, it's also really horrific because if he gets that, he can cast Mind Control twice, which is really, really horrible. Or do Whispered Secrets 3 times. Oh no, so that's once per turn, so you can't do it. But you could do Mind Control twice.
What's mind control? Is it a 3?
3, yeah.
3.
So he starts with 5, so he could do Mind Control twice,
Wow.
which is pretty unpleasant. So I would say with it's really hard to judge whether you're facing Silver Tongue, whether to call it or not.
Yeah.
I'd be tempted to say if the person casting it doesn't have Trickster, I'd be tempted to be more often call the bluff if they're within 6 inches of him. If he hasn't activated it. If he's already activated, don't care. Doesn't matter. If he hasn't already activated and he's sitting on 5 energy and there's a chance he can cast Mind Control twice, I mean, that's him making Braddock cast Forgetfulness on 2 of his friendly people. That's getting rid of Quarrel's crossbow and the airship's crossbow. Which is horrible. So those are things to consider, and those are really hard ones. I don't think there's a right or wrong or yes or no with that. That's you've got to. It very much depends on the situation, really. Which is, unless it's the really obvious ones where, as a defender, well, we're going to flip backwards and forwards, aren't we, between the active and defender, really, in this. As the defender, when the opponent's casting an ability, if they're casting a heal and they're healing someone a couple of wounds, you may as well just let it go because it's probably fairly irrelevant.
Yeah, and you don't want it to you don't want to creep up to if you pull the bluff and it's just like a 1 heal. You don't want that to double up and cast it twice.
Yeah, because healing 2 wounds on a character is not that big a deal. Healing 4 wounds is suddenly, actually, they're probably almost at full health again for most of them. So we then chose a couple of other situations where you may always bluff. So obviously, if you're casting a big, powerful spell that's going to do something that has a horrific catastrophe, and you don't get the cards you want, do you call a bluff? Do you bluff? Do you not bluff? And there's times when we think that you would.
If it could win you the game.
If you could win you the game.
Yeah.
So, for example, examples are things like Butterfingers.
Yeah.
So Cabinet has the same ability, which is the ability called Butterfingers. It is right at the end of turn 4, or within the sudden death phase, sudden death turn, and by bluffing and successfully bluffing, you will win the game. Of course, the problem with that is they're probably going to call a bluff.
Yeah,
because if they know it's going to win you the game, they're going to.
That would be an example of when to always call a bluff, because you're going to lose the game if you don't call.
Yeah.
So,
but at the same time, Butterfingers, the catastrophe is this model loses all energy. So our next point we've got here is if the catastrophe is not bad or won't affect you.
Yep. Sometimes
so
it can have no
if
effect.
Butterfingers has no energy left and it's casting Butterfingers, well, you may as well bluff.
Yeah.
Because you never know, your opponent might just go, oh, okay, yeah, it's fine.
And then particularly Lesher Vault have a few examples of catastrophes which aren't bad.
Aren't bad, yeah. Well, Danica's means it gives out extra energy.
Yeah.
So that's a way of getting off extra abilities. I mean, Danica's is particularly powerful because if she's sat in the middle of a load of other Lesher Vault, it gives extra energy to everyone. They also have for a wound as well, I think, but that means that that's a lot of Lesher Vault characters that can suddenly do those really powerful abilities. That's Ended Nigh going off and Rage is going off.
So
I think it's called Rage.
Shabroon do that as well? 1 energy and suffer a wound?
Yeah, but it's only goblins.
Goblins.
It's only goblins, so it doesn't work with most of the Lesher Vaults. In Lesher Vault, actually, because it's only friendly goblins. Yeah, no, his ability, his is just a spell that he casts, which is Goblin Mischief, isn't it? Which is all friendly goblins within 6 inches, I think, gain 1 energy and suffer X-1 wounds. So, yeah. That's like slightly different. Because Danica, what you could do is you go to Millimeter one and call a catastrophe.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't care if they all suffer a wound. If they all get the extra energy, it's worth it. Because now the abilities they can cast are absolutely horrific. Because, Lesher Vault, those energy 4 ones, energy 5 ones, whatever they are, that cost more than the energy they start with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Lubard becomes absolutely horrific if he gets that ability off. I can't remember what it's called. It's called. Basically, what it does is he gains 3 energy, so he gets all the energy back, and it's got like +2 damage and +2 melee or something. So he suddenly becomes just about the most damaging character in the book, in the game, with a range of 3. So absolutely terrible. Lesher Vault throw a whole new light on bluffing or not bluffing as well, because the catastrophes are different. But we won't talk too much about Lesher Vault, I think, because they're not. We're we're recording this in May 2019, and the Leicester aren't out until December. So if we start thinking about being the defender, so the target of an arcane ability, when you might or might not.
Yeah, and there's some situations where you would always call a bluff, I think.
Yeah, there's only a couple. We come with a couple where you'd always call it.
What are they?
Well, if you have the card they've called, so if they call a green 3 and you've got the green 3, then you may as well call a bluff.
Yeah, if you have all of that set of cards.
All of that set of cards, so yeah. Or most of that set of cards. That's the time when you would not say always call a bluff, but you may well do. So, for example, if you know that they need a 3, so for example, Transcombobulate's a good example. I think Transcombobulate, looks in front of me, I'll have a look at it. Let's find it quickly. Apologize for the delay. Yeah, it's a blue or red 3. So if you've got the blue 3 and they call the red 3, you may as well call a bluff. Because they can't cast it again anyway.
Yeah.
You know they can't cast it again. And obviously if you've got the red 3, you may as well call it. Actually, same with Goblin Luck. Goblin Luck is just green, blue or red 3.
Yes, if you have two of them.
If you have 2 of them and they've got the other one, you may as well always call it.
With impunity, really.
And thinking about that one in particular, if the other thing is if them being able to cast it again is not relevant.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if they're casting healing and they're healing one person who suffered 2 wounds, they say blue 1, it's X plus 1.
And there's no one else that can.
And no one else that can benefit from it. Well, you must always call a bluff. But that's the same with almost any ability as well, because if they're firing a gun at you, Flintlock's firing at you, and his card that he's playing is going to kill you, and he can't target anyone else afterwards, we must always call a bluff.
Yeah,
because he's going to die if I don't call it, so I'm going to call it.
Yeah.
So
something to be vigilant for, because sometimes if you let them slip through, there's always a chance that you could have saved that person.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of I guess I'll call it a rookie mistake. It's kind of a mistake you make if you start playing the game early on, or you got distracted or something. But you
forget.
There's not many occasions when I think you'd always call a bluff.
I think those
are two really.
Yeah.
If you have the card, or if there's no possible consequences really. Because again, Graddock throws another thing into the mix. If they're targeting someone that's within 4 inches of him, or 2 inches of him, then they have to show you the card. So they kind of can't bluff, or they'll be really stupid too. So
it's just a bold-faced lie if they try and do
that. The other time I think I'd potentially always call a bluff actually is if you are facing someone like Danica or Brother Daniel potentially, where the catastrophe is actually good for them. So Brother Daniel's one where I can choose to either suffer 4 wounds or be removed from the game. But if he's holding 3 moonstones, for example, and let's say you were playing with Brother Daniel and you called the catastrophe, therefore hoping to remove him and save those 3 moonstones, I'm going to call it.
Yeah.
Even if I haven't got any catastrophes, because you definitely can't do it again, because he'll be removed from the game, which I guess it kind of falls under that one, but I also don't want to risk it, because it might... I won't be playing catastrophe, I'll be playing a red 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever, but stopping the ability.
Yeah. You just want to nullify it rather than...
Yeah.
You don't want to,
although, I mean, it'd be risky with Danica's one, because then she could give them all another energy. She could do it again, play another character. They'd also have another wound, but that's everyone with an extra 2 energies, a bit horrible. Especially if it's got Daniel as well, he can just cast healing more than once.
Heal that back
heal it back. Yeah, he'll stand in the middle, he'll him up again, and then that's really terrible. So but the main thing is not if they can't cast it again. So the other times when you probably would not really ever bother calling a bluff is if you have none of the cards that they've said they've called. So if they're firing a crossbow, which is greens, and your hand is made up entirely of red and blue, it's probably not worth calling a bluff, is it? Gnomes are a good example actually, because almost all their range abilities are green, and fairies almost their range abilities are red. Obviously, fairies have got the whole trickster thing, which is always, again, throws that spanner in the works because, that's That's the problem with them. But and obviously Silvertongue. Silvertongue throws a spanner in a lot of work, so in every game, doesn't he? He's a bit of a pain in the backside. And then there's this one.
What's that? Low heal, low change.
It says damage.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So even if the spell, so this is times when you would never really bother. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't bother calling a buff if they're just saying, "Oh, blue 1 to heal." Okay, yeah, fine. You can heal your 1 wound or your 2 wounds. Or it's a low damage one. So things like pea shooter, or even the fire spit, they're calling a green 1. Okay, well, I'll suffer 2 damage. I don't think the fire spit is blue, is green, but whichever one he is.
Can't remember.
I'd rather not get hit again.
Yeah.
So that's another situation where you just okay, yes, fine, leave it, because there's no sort of issue. I guess the other time, possibly not too worried about calling a bluff, is if you haven't got any catastrophes. I mean, yes, you could end their ability by playing the card that they don't.
Yeah, it comes down to how much do you care about that they're getting through.
I mean, there's always going to be like we were talking about this before we started recording, that there aren't that many times when you would always call a bluff, never call a bluff, or as the active player always bluff or never bluff.
No.
It's a huge grey area in the middle, which is kind of the point. And you've always got to look at the cards you've got. I mean, like I said, there are certain situations where you'd always call it, not even looking at your cards.
Well, obviously, this is without even touching on the whole, poker face element of the game. This is purely looking at just the statistical side of it, and
yes,
but that's another element that each person has to take account of in their own way, which is
because the thing is, if you're thinking about when you'd always or never bluff, that's only a statistical anyway.
Yeah,
because you can never rely on your opponent because, firstly, because most of the time your opponent's an adult who, once they understand the game a little bit, can probably summon enough of a poker face in this game to.
Well, yeah.
I mean, sometimes there's been games when we've played before where we haven't been able to hide our emotions when we've received a card and gone, oh crap, oh wait a second, I can't bluff.
Yeah.
There's times when we've both done that kind of thing where we've huffed, even sighed a little bit, but not intentionally.
It's even come down to I've thought I've now left. You're gonna know that I haven't got what I want. But then you can play it, then you can try and exploit that.
You can tell you can try and exploit that. That's the thing. It's like I don't think I'm that good at reading people. To be honest with you, I don't think I ever really know if you're bluffing or not.
Yeah, it's. But obviously, that's the whole other side of it, which is.
There's something to be said for trying to read too much into your opponent's reaction. Almost if you're trying to read too much into it, it's almost easier for them to fool you.
Yeah,
because it's easy to double bluff you.
Yeah.
So I'll almost be tempted to say, don't try and read your opponent too much, and go. I mean, if you play with someone a lot and you know that they like to bluff a lot because they like the fun of it, then I guess you could call it more often. But that might be the one time that they haven't. It is a tricky one. I think that's the fun of it, isn't it? That's supposed to be the fun of it. There's times when you play abilities where really the mechanic is slightly irrelevant when you're playing blue 2 to heal and you've got 2 blue 2s and they've got none. You go, okay, fine, and it's a really quick action, fine. But it's those times when you fire a crossbow through cover at a fairy, but you've also got the extra arcane or something's happened and it's something like, oh god, if you hit me, it's going to do this. But if I call bluff and you can do this. It's those kind of abilities, or when the crossbow is almost a simplistic one. Actually, it's things like stealing moonstones is one obvious one, but even things like whispered secrets. Gaining energy.
Yeah.
Do I call a bluff? Because actually, with whispered secrets, if he does whispered secrets and he has bluffed, he gets the extra energy and all wounds back again for Fairy Mystic, because it doesn't say other fairies. It's just a friendly fairy within 6 inches, so that includes him.
Yeah.
So if Silvertongue successfully bluffs while casting Whispered Secrets, not only does the fairy, can he cast it again using the same cards, and that fairy will gain X energy and restore 1 wound and therefore do it again, he'll also get 2 more energy. Which means he'd then be able to cast Mind Control again. Especially if he's cast it on himself. If he's cast Whispered Secrets on himself.
Oh, can he do it on himself?
Yeah, he could gain X energy, so get energy back for it, restore 1 wound, then do Fairy Mischief and get 2 more energy. So he could, if he got a red 3, which he might do, he's Arcane 5, he could get the extra energy back, and potentially there's a potential for him to get cast Mind Control 3 times.
Oh.
Which is absolutely terrible. Yeah. And fairies are the ones, if you're facing against, the hardest ones to call bluffing, I think.
Mm-hmm.
They've got, generally speaking, pretty high arcane stats.
They've got a lot of nasty abilities.
They've got a lot of arcane, and then their arcane either often high damage, like for example. Okay, this is the other section where it goes all muffled for some reason. In fact, you couldn't hear it at all, so I cut it out. When it comes back, it's a little bit muffled for about 30 to 40 seconds. But I've left it in because you can make it out a little bit, so I do apologise for that again. I can't remember exactly what we're talking about in the sort of minute of recording that I've lost. We were talking about fairies and probably about Silvertongue a little bit, but how we can give extra energy to people, and definitely when it comes back, you'll hear me saying about Enfeeble, which is an ability that Fencer has. But I'm afraid I can't remember exactly what we're talking about, so I do apologise and hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast. You can cast Enfeeble with impunity and still go still hit you 4 times.
Yeah.
And you're minus X damage. And it's still Arcane 4. If you're hitting someone like Crit, it's +1. And there's a good chance that she's going to get the red 3. Suddenly, Trixie's sword is now supposed to have anything at all.
Oh, yeah, she's +3.
It's +3, so it's completely nullify it. The fairies are the ones that are really, really tricky to do against. Particularly if you've got Foxglove and Slayer and Silvertongue. And double combination.
Yeah, I like that about this fairy concept.
Yeah, that's the point, isn't it? They're supposed to have that unique feel to them, and theirs is the arcane, the powerful, short-ranged arcane, and abilities that can really mess with you. But obviously, the thing with fairies, which I've discussed in a previous podcast, Tommy, is activation order is really important.
Yeah.
With humans, it's less so, and with gnomes, I'd say less so. Goblins, it is more so, and Leshervolt really is so. But fairies, definitely, the activation order is really important. Trying to think if there's anyone else that's got... Oh, well, actually, I thought something we haven't mentioned or did. Forgot to mention this or not. People that can manipulate the arcane deck.
Don't think we did mention that. We really got
no, I can't remember if we talked about that before. We didn't talk about it before we started recording. So we got Young Jack is the only one that's currently out. That can manipulate the arcane deck. But there's a lot coming soon that can.
Danica and Foxglove, is it?
No, Gwendolyn can.
Oh, Gwendolyn, yeah.
Danica can. I think there's someone else as well, but I can't remember who.
Yeah, there is.
There's someone else that can. So Danica's ability, if I remember correctly, because I haven't got that one in front of me, is that she can take, you can spend
2 cards for every spirit, I think, isn't it?
Yes. So if you've got
6 cards,
I think it's 3 cards for every spirit.
Oh yeah.
So if you've got the 3 witches, that's 9 cards, and if you've got Striga Anya, that's a spirit,
Revenant,
and the Revenant, she can take almost the entire deck and pick it up.
Then she'd be almost entirely dead.
No, because you suffer, I think, 2 wounds for every card you remove.
Oh, she'd be dead then, yeah.
So you can't take all the cards, but you get to look at all those cards and then take as many as you want.
Oh, so you only lose
And
the wounds
for everyone you
what
take, you suffer, I think it's 2 wounds.
Right.
But if you can afford to take, like, 4, I think, or 3, I think you can take 3 cards out. So you could take out, for example, if you're facing gnomes, just take out green 3 and 2 green 2s. And suddenly, all their range stuff is suddenly absolutely terrible.
Same versus fairies, take out the reds.
Well, same versus fairies take out the reds, except a lot less faults red as well.
Yeah,
So a lot less of the less fault stuff is on green.
I think the last game we played, the same thing came up. It's like I didn't want to remove the reds.
Yeah.
Because it would be harming me almost as much as fairies.
And there's also the possibility to take out all the catastrophes.
Yeah,
which would be interesting because only you'd know.
You would know, yeah. So
you would know there's no catastrophes.
Knowledge is power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which would be really good if you're facing against a troop that doesn't have a lot of arcane. So therefore it only benefits you. Like if you're facing, for example, a human build that's mainly a combatty or a mainly combatty build that hasn't got a lot of arcane, it's mainly using active abilities or passive abilities. Well, basically now all my arcane is now pretty much dead on.
Yeah.
You know, you can then you definitely can bluff with impunity because you know there's no consequences. Of course, the flip side of that is you then can't use the catastrophes with Echelons.
Yeah.
So with Echelons, it means you can't use them. There's no way to get
dies,
her back until she dies.
Yeah.
But at the moment the ability doesn't say you can't just put them back. I think Gwendolyn says because Gwendolyn you can then use them.
Yeah, so that's a big
Gwendolyn you can put them to the side and you can then add them to your hand. And there's someone else who can add them. Oh, Kavanagh. Kavanagh can take things out and you can do something with them. So that's so if you had those 3, it's a lot of arcane deck manipulation.
Yeah.
Danica, Gwendolyn, and Kavanagh. But of course, if you manipulate too much and you haven't got as much,
are they just? I know Kavanagh's.
I'm pretty sure Gwendolyn will be Dominion as well because she's a fairy and she'll want to be able to go with fairies. Danica and Kavanagh both Leshfelt only.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So even though he's a gnome, he can't actually play with gnomes.
No.
He's Leshfelt only. So yeah, Arcane Manette, which is not, like I said, with the current setup as we speak, as it were, with the models that are currently out, it's not particularly, it's only young Jack that can do it.
Yeah.
And for him, it only impacts the next arcane ability, whether it's theirs or your own.
He's just looking at the cards, isn't it? I think.
Looking at the cards and putting one at the top, one at the bottom, and one in the middle. So he can either guarantee getting something off if he knows that, for example, you haven't got an arcane person left with any arcane abilities. He can guarantee that heal off if he gets a blue and puts it at the top. Or if he knows that the person you've got to activate next needs a red, and he can put the red at the bottom or in the middle, for example, and make it less likely for you to get the red you want or whatever. Same like if Shabaroon is activating next, you know he's probably going to have to activate next, and if you can get lucky and get a 3, and stick it at the bottom, then it can be good. That's not so much about that. That doesn't necessarily affect your bluffing. Oh, but it affects your bluffing if you remove all the catastrophes. Because this podcast is supposed to be about when to bluff, not to bluff. It's also just going to be a general conversation about arcane abilities, really, isn't it?
Silvertongue.
And Silvertongue. It's a pain in the ass. But yeah, and obviously, I guess the other thing to think about is how many cards you've got. If you're the active player, there's times where you can expect the opposition. That's why we haven't talked. If they're only drawing one card.
Oh, yeah.
If they've only got one card, you may as well always call a bluff.
Yeah.
Because the people who've got Trickster probably aren't going to only have one card. Because they've got Arcane, like 5. Yeah. Although I don't think Foxclub has Arcane, might only be 3. But still, they've got high enough Arcane stats where they're probably going to be called drawing more than one card. Because Freyas is 5. But yeah, if your opponent is only drawing one card, like if Flintlock is firing at a fairy, without support from Quack, who can give him plus 2 arcane, then you'd always call a bluff. If they've only got one card, you'd always call a bluff because there's no way they can benefit.
That was one of the obvious ones to put right at the start.
Yeah,
I didn't think of that.
That's all right. But yeah, but the thing is that when you start talking about it, you realise how much more complicated it is than
yeah.
Because I think one of the things that I noticed when I've demoed to people is that the starter set, which is basically what we demo with pretty much, we don't put Fire Flavius or Grub in, and we put Boulder and Gotchka in normally to the respective troops. Is there's not actually a huge amount of arcane in that,
right,
in those builds. Particularly, you've got Flintlock firing his gun, you've got Franchak firing a pistol, and you've got Eric healing. And on the Goblin troop side, you've got the Midget being able to move people, Beaky being able to heal, and then Doug.
It's just his healing that's arcane, isn't it, Beaky?
Just his healing
The other
stuff
stuff is all...
I can't remember. I don't think Doug's got anything.
active.
Nope, his is just active. So there's not a lot of arcane in the starter set.
Yeah.
You have got, obviously, Boulder's Stone Song. And that's another time when you could always call a bluff. Is if
he's on a 4.
Oh, so no, if you're playing, if you are Boulder,
yeah,
and it's on a 4,
yeah,
you haven't got the card you want. Well, you may as well call a bluff.
Because the catastrophe is just
the catastrophe is they can change it to whatever they want. So
he doesn't suffer any effects.
Don't suffer any effects. So yeah,
can they keep it on a 4? Do they have to change it?
Yeah, well, you can. And I think it says like you can set the depth value to whatever you want.
Oh right. Yeah.
So yeah, that's another time when you could always bluff, because there's again that comes under the catastrophe isn't that bad section. But because with the starter set, there's not a huge amount of arcane in it. Oh, well, so in the demo, I suppose, because actually with Grub, he's got some arcane, I think.
I've only used Grub once, I think. I'm trying to...
if he does. Find him. He's got... No, I said he's got no arcane.
Oh, your phone probably made that's probably a horrendous noise.
Yeah, Grub hasn't got any. Oh, no, sorry. The light shine. I'm trying to over the X. Yeah, Bug Spray. So he has, and actually has quite bad target X magical damage, which isn't great. And also not modified by evade or cover, so good against fairies. So particularly you can just jump up next to them and then spray them with the Bug Spray. But yeah.
Everything on the list?
Covered? Yeah, I guess the other times that I would be really scared about calling a bluff would be against someone like the Fire Splitter. Because it just even if you go blue 3 and it's like, oh god, I was having 6 wounds, but
get it over with.
Say, oh god, I'll just suffer the 6 wounds. Unless one of the other conditions we mentioned, like for example, he's firing at a character who's going to die whether I call it or not, and you can't target someone else after that, then I would call a bluff. But let's say he's got target on 3 people, and that blue thing's going to kill someone. It's like, oh, and I haven't got the blue thing in my hand. I'm probably going to let you kill them.
Yeah, definitely.
Generally speaking, with the Fire Splitter, he's finds it hard to get more than one shot off. 2x damage, yeah. Although the catastrophe is obviously hilarious.
Oh, that's the big explosions.
He explodes, yeah. All models within 3 inches suffer 4 magical damage, and you can't cast it again. Yeah, it is, yeah.
On multiple targets, potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely not one of the ones where the catastrophe isn't that bad. Well, unless he's in the middle of the enemy.
Unless you're doing it on purpose, yeah. Or again, the thing with that is if you know, right, well, I've got to do it because he's not carrying it. Like that's that end of the game. He's not carrying a Moonstone. I'm not going to kill anyone that is carrying one. I might be able to kill someone that is carrying one, so I'm going to cast it anyway.
So I guess that's when we talk about, well, is a catastrophe that bad? Especially as it gets towards the end of the game, you've got to remember in a standard scenario what the objective of the game is. So someone dying or suffering wounds isn't necessarily bad at all.
Yep.
If it's not going to harm your Moonstone collection, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially in turn 4, when you know there's not going to be another turn, as long as you've got more Moonstones.
When it comes to turn 4, sort of killing people is probably it's often the least of your worries.
Yeah.
It's making sure you've got the Moonstone, unless you're killing someone that's carrying one.
So it's often about blocking people from getting Moonstones rather than killing people or worrying about your people dying.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm just going to quick flick through the There's anyone else that I think it's worth mentioning. So Stormsoul, no. The only one, I guess, this is more like about when to cast an arcane ability and not, rather than bluffing or not, is watching out for Fire Flavius.
He's just got Hail Mary.
Yeah,
thing,
he's got a called Divine Intervention. So
I think
if when you cast an arcane ability against him,
yeah,
no, someone within 4 inches of this model,
right.
and his resist hand has 2 catastrophes, he can make you have a catastrophe straight away, which is pretty horrible. I would potentially I'd say things like, I'm just looking, I've got Kaufman right here, Generous Offer. If he's casting that ability on you and you know that he's going to steal the Moonstone off you and you know it's going to win them the game, then you've got to call a bluff.
Yep.
Even if he can steal another one off you, because you just can't risk it. Because he is also only Arcane 3. And it's only once per turn, so you can't cast it again. It hasn't got any. There's all the abilities as well that gain energy and things, like Agatha's target gains X energy is always a little scary one. The other one I just thought of where the catastrophe is either really good or horrible. There's a couple actually, which is Belladonna.
Oh god, yeah.
Drop a Nightshade. If she, I think it happened in the last game that I think that I played against you when you used Belladonna.
I took out Daniel.
Yeah. I had to call it.
Yeah.
Because the catastrophe was going to kill you anyway.
Yeah.
So Jack moves up against Daniel with Belladonna, cast up a Nightshade, and cast as a catastrophe, which means that both of them are slain. And I have to call the bluff. Because also, I know he can't do it again. It's exactly the same thing for his ability at the end is 9, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's either the catastrophe is that the controlling player of Daniel gets to choose suffering 4 wounds, or is removed from play but not slain. You've got to call it. With the abilities like shooting pistols and things, it's really there's not a time when you could or couldn't call it unless you've got the cards.
Judge it.
You got to judge it. Really. Yeah. I think that's probably.
How long's this video now?
This video is not a video. It's 40 minutes, so yeah, that's fine. I think that's probably enough.
There's a video on there, look at all the bars.
you know, this is going to go in it. I think that'll do, won't it? I think we've probably babbled on quite long enough. We've used 1 hour, the 599 available. Cool. All right. Well, I never know what the next one's going to be about. Maybe we'll do the next one about melee.
Yeah,
we're doing because it's when we wrote down loads of things about what we do. We thought it was going to be about when bluff, not to bluff. Actually, it's just a bit about arcane, isn't it?
Yeah,
which is fine. Maybe we'll do the next one about melee because that could be quite interesting. About when to play a signature move, when not to play a signature move, how to almost bluff with your signature move as well.
Maybe a few types, recurring types of signature move to watch out for, etc.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for listening, and I hope you enjoyed that. I'm not going to do the Yaldi Wrap-Ups at the ending. Wow, why?